Well, good afternoon again, and thank you for joining Master Gardeners Trial Talk Live. I'm your moderator, Nancy McDonald. Today, I'm going to introduce Odette McIntyre, one of our Master Gardeners. And it's always lovely to hear of a gardening journey that began, like Odette's did, when she was 8 years old. Her gardening passion has continued, and today, Odette is going to share with us timely information on growing cold weather crops. So over to you, Odette.
Well, thank you, Nancy. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this presentation on cold weather crops. Actually, it's as a means to extending the gardening season. Cold weather crops have always been an interest for me because of their flavors, of course, and their culinary capabilities, and the gardening possibilities that they offer as well. Here they are. So this garden here that I'm just showing is actually my brother's garden. He's my gardening guru, and I'd like to dedicate this presentation to my brother. And I just love the easy gardening look of his garden. It just looks so easy, but I know how many hours he spends in there. Okay. Here we go. What are cold weather crops? What am I talking about? So I mean kale, lettuce, spinach, rapini, Asian greens like bok choy, pak choy, tatsoi, and so many others. There's peas, radishes, beets, chard, collard greens, endive, celery, carrots, Brussels sprouts, parsnips, and many more. And there's also many varieties and cultivars that are available out there. I was looking at the website. I was looking at the seed websites in the spring when I was trying to purchase my seed, and there's so much. It's incredible. So plenty of choice. Okay, so why choose cold weather crops? Why would you do that? Okay, so to me, it's an essential tool for succession planting. I'm really into succession planting. I've read tremendous literature about that, of course, and I've tried many things. So succession planting, to me, is really the solution to cold weather climate, right? And so there's many options, many different plans, many different schemes for succession planting, but I do the three garden succession planting. So why stop at one garden if you can have three, right? Okay, so I do the garden number one is mostly about cold. It's mostly the leaves, right? The leafy crops. So usually I have lettuce, spinach, Asian vegetables, rapini, and peas. And then there's garden number two is for the warm season crops. So that's the beans, tomatoes, cucumbers, zucchinis, peppers, eggplants, so many, right? It's really, it's easy to find crops here. And garden number three, that's my fall garden that I usually start around the 15th of July. And we'll talk about those again. So just be patient. But anyway, the fall garden for me is the root crops. This is when I get to root crops. So, but we'll talk about those in a few minutes. Increase of fresh food self-reliance. Okay, so what do I mean by that? What I mean is that, for example, we've just gone through COVID, right? And what happened? We ran out of masks. We didn't have the vaccines that we needed. Toilet paper ran out. Like, there's just so many different things that happened. And then we realized that we could make our own masks. And the vaccines, well, we hope we're going to start making them soon. And so we started realizing that we can start doing things ourselves, and people started getting interested in growing food. So the cold weather crops allow you, they permit you to have a longer growing season and produce lots of food until December. Okay, look at this, does not require pollination. So that's another plus of the cold weather crops, is that to make a carrot, you don't need to have the bees or any other pollinator. And if you happen to be in an area where there's not that many pollinators because people have eliminated them, who knows why, so then it's nice to have something that you can still grow, and but that doesn't require the pollinators. Offering options for pest management. Okay, so I'm going to, here I'm talking about the root crops, right? I'm talking about root crops being sensitive to the carrot fly, the rust fly, like the root maggots and all that. And so because of their capacity to go into the fall, you can harvest them in November. You can start them, therefore you can start them later. And because of that, if you can start them, for example, on July 15, the advantage is that you won't have any of those pests anymore, like the carrot fly, the rust fly, and all these won't be a problem anymore. So that's the advantage. All right. Cold tolerance. What is cold tolerance? Where does it come from? And if you're curious like me, you can go and look it up. And so I looked up the OMAFRA website, the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, so the OMAFRA website. And there's a lot of research reports on that site, and you can learn a lot. Okay, so one of the first condition, I guess, that helps cold tolerance is the savoid leaves. So if you look at this kale here on the right, this kale is all crinkly, like the surface of the leaves is all crinkly. And in those crinkles, there's air that accumulates and protects the leaf. It creates like an insulating surface, and the leaf can be tolerant that much more. Anthocyanin. All right, so what is anthocyanin? It's a purple pigment that you often find like in those carrots, for example, in those beans, but you find that, of course, in kale, you find that in lettuce, and so many different crops that have anthocyanin. Anthocyanin is like an antifreeze for plants, and it occurs naturally. So it's not something that's induced, it occurs naturally. Genetic, right? So genetic, of course, is big business, right? We're talking about cold tolerance, like being able to to grow things in the cold earlier, and all this is big business. And so there's a lot of research, and so through selection, there was many varieties that were produced, and through hybridization as well. But also now, of course, genetic tampering, and I don't approve of it, but it doesn't matter. I'm sure that people, I know that several companies have spliced in the anthocyanin production in certain crops. So that's something you want to be aware of when you're looking for seed in the spring. Is look for seed that are not genetically modified, if this is something that's important to you. One of the last factor here to improve cold tolerance, it's one of the physiogenic factors, and this particular one is water. So if you hear that there's going to be a hard frost, and it's going to be colder, like below -1, then make sure you water the day before, like the night before. Water does increase the tolerance again as well. That also from the OMAFRA website. Okay, so let's look at the photoperiods here. I put this table here with the photoperiod requirements by crop type. And so like warm season, it's let's say preferably 8 to 10 hours. So that's the tomato, pepper, eggplant. Root crops, 6 hours. Carrots, potato, turnip. And the leafy greens, 4 to 5 hours. So not demanding at all. So what I meant to explain here is that at the equinox, like the spring equinox on March 21st, there is 12 hours, of course, of daylight. But it's not like it's 12 hours of daylight, but it's not all these 12 hours that will be useful for a crop, right? Maybe from 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 p.m., that might be your window. So maybe 6 hours at the most, right? And I guess when you get to the summer solstice, which is the 21st of June, in Ottawa here, we have 15 hours and 40 minutes of actual light, right? But it's not those 15 hours that will be useful to grow tomatoes, right? This obviously you have to, again, maybe go from 9 o'clock until 5 p.m. And then so that you have many more hours and you're closer to your 8-hour requirement, right? So I just wanted to point out that our cold crops here, the root crops needing 6 hours and the leafy greens needing 4 to 5 hours, makes them even more eligible to our garden space, right? Okay. Let's talk about leafy vegetables. So I just want to show you first those photos. So the left side is my cold frame that I had when I used to live in Toronto a few years ago. So it's a very simple cold frame. It's just like 2x1s that are built in the shape of a box and with plastic. And this is the lid part that you can lift, and inside of it, voila, this is what you have here. Lettuce that I had, and lettuce and rapini, and a little bit of strawberries, but anyway, I had seeded the rapini and the lettuce. This picture I took on April 21st, 2019, and I had seeded all this stuff on March 21st, like a month before. And the harvest was May 21st. So just letting you know that, yes, by May 21st, I was reliant on my own lettuce and rapini. The box here on the side, the planting box, is it's just my the next crop. You can see the little lettuce babies that are coming up. So it's just the next crop of lettuce there. So, okay. Oh yeah, what did I want to say here? Wanted to say about leafy vegetables and about garden number 1. What I wanted to say is you got to make sure you prepare your soil the year before, right? In the fall, you check out your soil, you prepare it, you add the amendments that you need, like, you probably put organic matter, like compost. You probably want to put a little bit of lime if your pH is not quite what you want it to be. And you work out your soil a little bit, rake it and prep it. And if you have a cold frame, then you put your cold frame on top and you're ready to go for the spring. But if you don't have a cold frame, it's okay. You can just rake the soil into little rows there so that the water drains easily out of them and the soil is warm enough. It's warmer than if you just left it flat, right? So you rake your soil so that you have the little rows. And that's, you leave this like that and you're good to go, right? Usually, I check my soil. Anyway, let's change slide and then you'll see. So I check my soil like every day, starting about March 15, I check my soil every day to see if it's ready to be seeded. So on my photo here, this is my new cold frame that I've got in Ottawa. And you can see this picture was taken on March 8. And there was quite a bit of snow left outside, but inside my cold frame, actually, this one I can walk right in. So inside my cold frame, the soil was ready to go. And I started seeding some lettuce and spinach at that time. It didn't do that great, but anyway, I continued. March 15, I put some more spinach and radishes. And so I kept going at it. And now we're April 27, and I know that at I guess May 15, May 20, I'll have a crop of lettuce and spinach for sure, radishes, and also tatsoi. All right, so leaf lettuce is a fetish leaf crop, right? Everybody wants to grow leaf lettuce. So, and why? It's because it's easy to grow and it tolerates light frost. So I encourage you to try it. If you're going to do an early spring crop, choose the Savoy leaves. And if you're going to be growing lettuce in the summer, please remember to use the oak leaf because it's a little bit more bolting tolerant. Okay, I mean, I have so much more to say, but I'm going to keep it down. Okay, so this is my root crop. Root crops for me is ideal for garden number 3 for the reasons that I was explaining earlier. It's to miss that root maggot fly and all that, right? So what I do is I always grow garlic so I usually plant it in October and I harvest it by the end of June or early July. After I harvest my garlic, and then it's root crop time. So I'm just going to go ahead and see like all the root crops I want in the spot where the garlic used to be. And because I love carrots, so that's what I'm going to seed. And so I seed Chantenay, Imperator, Nantes, and one of the rainbow ones. So when you seed carrots, you can make sure your soil, first of all, is deep enough because carrots don't like to encounter rocks. It makes them crooked. Lots of watering, of course. And when you seed the carrots, like seed some radishes in between. So gives them, the radishes will germinate before the carrots do. And they kind of break the crust that forms on top of the soil sometimes. So it breaks and then it allows the carrots to come through more easily. And remember, moisture, moisture, moisture. The carrots you harvest after a few frosts have gone by. So ideally, like October, November, like I've even gone into December. And I remember one year I kind of left them a little bit too long and I had to chip them out with a pick. So I don't recommend waiting that long, obviously, right? Okay. I think we're pretty well done here. So I'm not sure if you started your gardening, your early garden, your early spring garden yet, but you haven't. If you haven't, no problem. Get your seeds in the ground right now. You should be planting potatoes as well and onions. But anyway, at least get your little, green leafy vegetables in the ground. All right. Questions?
Thank you, Odette. Marion's been looking to see if we've had any questions, so I'll let her take over.
Okay, we have one from Francine. Her question is, I started different types of kale inside about 3 weeks ago. Can I plant them outside now that there's no hard frost in the forecast for the next 14 days in the Ottawa area? Or do I need to slowly harden them off before planting?
Yeah, well, because you started them indoors, so I would definitely harden them up for a couple of days, right? But next year, you plant those, you see those straight in the ground. I mean, kale is so hardy, especially purple kale. Oh, as soon as you can shovel the snow off and, throw your seed in there because it's very, very tough. I don't know if I said that. I actually have a friend that had her kale come back from last year. It's hers has turned into a perennial. So go right ahead with kale, put it in, but harden up for a couple of days. But my God, it's so ready to go in the ground. Yeah.
Oh, great advice. There's another question here from Catherine for you, Odette. Do you start your early garden greens ahead inside and transplant or direct seed?
Direct seed. And actually this year is the first year that I started lettuce inside this year. I just wanted to see what it was going to do. So I started lettuce March 1st inside and transplanted it outside end of March into my cold frame. So I put it in my cold frame and that green lettuce turned purple. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, it's done quite well. It's continued living and I'm going to harvest it, I'm sure in May 15 probably. It's definitely growing quickly. But yeah, direct seed is fine. Yeah, that's what I do. As soon as you can work the soil with your cultivator, like, just, and then see if you can put some seed in there. And that's it, simple.
Perfect. Another question here from Sheila. Do you amend soil again after crop number 1 and before crop number 2, or in between 2 and 3, or just once at the beginning of the season?
Good question. And okay, so how often do I amend, right? So definitely amend in the fall in the area that I'm going to be preparing for the cold frame. That area totally gets amended, and so I adjust my pH once, right? The lime application, I just do it once. But organic matter, i.e. compost, my goodness, I keep going at it as much as I have compost. When it's ready, it's going in the garden, and I just keep adding. One proviso, there's just one thing that, so carrots don't like that much feeding. So for garden number 3, I actually don't spend too much time putting compost. I go after, but prior to, it's just like, sometimes it can make them crooked. It can make the carrots, they don't advise putting manure, for example, or green manure. So yeah. All right, that's it. That's my answer.
Okay, that's good. Better than I would have answered it, definitely. Another question from Marin. Is perennial kale as tasty as first-year kale?
Somebody who finds kale tasty, eh? All right. So I don't know. We haven't tasted the perennial kale yet, like the one I was telling you that my friend is growing. So I don't know. I haven't tasted it yet, but you're right. Kale is delicious, and it's one of those tough crops. I wish I put a picture of that kale that we had under a row cover until Christmas. Like you can make beautiful kale chips, right? So put salt and oil. It's always delicious.
There we go. Good. Another question from Sharon. Garlic taken out of the soil in October and plant carrots and radishes then, I guess, instead? Is the question.
So I'm talking about June, right? So the garlic comes out, like the crop is ready at the end of June, early July, right? That's when you harvest garlic. You don't harvest in the fall. You harvest end of June, end of June, early July. And when you've harvested those, then you renovate your soil a little bit, like you rake it and you kind of look to see if there's any stones or anything. And then the carrots go in, or whatever other root crop you want to put, like maybe parsnips is your thing. I don't know. I'm always talking about carrots, but there's many more that you can put in. So yes, it goes in exactly the same spot. So that's using your square footage. That's always my goal, is to maximize the number of crops I can get out of my square footage. That's it.
Perfect. Another question. Can you plant greens in containers and or pots?
Okay, so yes, of course you can. Oh, yeah, in pots. And so you just have to be diligent. And in my head right now, I don't know if you see what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about my son-in-law, the poor guy who's planted a whole bunch of lettuces last year, but you have to harvest them, right? You have to keep harvesting it. Like, you're not going to grow like a big iceberg clump of lettuce, right? It's always going to be more like leaf lettuce. So if you grow leaf lettuce and you harvest it continuously, yeah, why not? You can definitely grow it there. It's just don't let it grow tall. That's the main thing. That's it.
Perfect. Another question here from Francine. I'm planning on planting potatoes in pots. How big does the pot need to be?
Francine, my God, cease and desist. Okay, I hope you're not thinking about one of those gimmicky things that I've seen online a few times. Like people build these boxes and then they put like a layer of potatoes And then they keep adding, like every 2 weeks, they keep adding more soil and sand and blah, blah, blah. They keep adding and the leaves go on top. You won't get much of a crop out of that. It's really, I've tried many times and I don't know what it is that I haven't done right, but I never got a decent crop out of that. And anybody that I've spoken to, and maybe you guys have different opinions on that, but it just, anybody I spoke to, it hasn't worked. So I've always found that rather gimmicky, but maybe you try and you tell us if it's worked. But go and just find yourself like a plot of soil, like a real plot of soil for potatoes. This is the place to grow potatoes. Yeah, real soil.
Perfect. A question from Kathy, soil prep. How long does it take to warm the soil, warm the cold frame soil? Use black plastic. When do you set up the frame? Snow issues.
Okay, so snow issues. So I prepared the soil in the fall, right? Let's look at my cold frame here. So the soil, so I prepared the soil in the fall, and then I put my cold frame and winter came, kaboom, right? There's snow everywhere it's frozen, but inside here, and I checked, and on March 8th, this picture was taken on March 8th. On March 8th, the ground was good in there. It was actually melted, ready to go. So I took my cultivator and cultivated and seeded lettuce. And what else did I seed in there? Rapini, spinach, rapini, lettuce. Anyway, so I seeded things, and every week I added more until now my cold frame is full. There's too much in there now. So yeah, you don't need to do anything in the spring. It's just ready to go, and check it often to see if it's ready to go. So it could be March 8th. This year was March 8th. I've never seen March 8th before, though. Like normally it's March 21st, right? So you start checking around March 15 and see, if it's ready to go. Check if it's not ready on the 15th, go on the 16th or the 17th, or keep checking, in other words, right? Okay, back to you.
So some more questions here. Another one from Sandra. Should you remove yellow leaves off perennial kale or wait until you see new leaves first?
Yellow leaves are pointless. Remove them. They're useless. You can't do anything with yellow leaves. They're not absorbing. They're not contributing. So yeah, remove them, and you'll get some new crops. Yeah.
So the question that was earlier with the potatoes in pots, she was asking, she's using, this is Francine, no, I'm using pots from trees I purchased. So I guess she's wondering if that's the bigger size is any better.
Huh. Well, try it and let us know. I've never tried it. And I'm just, what I'm thinking is that about planting and then adding every 2 weeks, adding more soil, that hasn't worked for me. And I don't know anyone who's had success with that. But maybe if you have a big pot, and then you put your potatoes in there, it should be interesting. Plant some good potatoes. Plant some. There's some really good potatoes out there, right? Like Yukon Gold is a real true variety. Kennebec, Pontiac, Chieftains, there's so many good varieties out there. So go for it. Don't get a genetically modified potato, please. It's not worth it. If you're going to be gardening and doing all that effort, you want some true, real flavors. So go for it. Try.
Great. So we have probably enough time for 1 or 2 questions more at most. From Tula, have you ever grown root parsley? It looks similar to parsnip, but is supposed to be sweeter tasting. I'm trying it for the first time this year.
Root parsley. So I wonder if it's like celeriac, is like root celery, is it it's the same family, right? So it's the same. So that's an interesting thing. And this is what I find amazing about gardening, is that you can try tremendous stuff that you don't necessarily find at the grocery store. And you can discover flavors and ways of doing things. You can reinvent the wheel. You can become creative. So I'm curious, and I don't know, send us an email. You know, when you try it, yeah, send us an email. We want to know. Get us some pictures. Yeah.
Do we still have time for one more question, Nancy?
We're just at 1 o'clock, maybe one more.
Okay. There's a last question is from Marianne Van Berlo. When do the root crops get harvested, and then does the garlic go back in?
So the root crops get harvested, well, usually, you know, you have to plant your garlic in November, right? So end of October, November. So if you want to plant your garlic in that same spot, it's up to you. Where the carrots are currently are, you can do that. Or as a good rotation practice to start somewhere else, right? So you wouldn't want to do your garlic and carrots in the same spot. But if you do, so be it. So harvest your carrots first, of course, and end of October, and then plant your garlic, and nothing stops you at that point. That's it.
Terrific.
Well,
Great,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much. Thank you so much, Odette, for really a very interesting presentation on cold weather crops and making the best of your square footage. Also, thank you, participants, for giving us so many good questions to answer. So now I just want to remind you that we will be here again next week. Actually, I'm presenting next week on Eat Your Blooms. So which flowers and what can you do with your edible flowers. So thank you so much, and we will see you next week, hopefully. Good gardening.
Thank you.
Mhm.